Beloved actor James Van Der Beek this morning, who died Wednesday after a fight with colorectal cancer. He was 48 years old. Van Der Beek was best known for starring as Dawson Leery in the teen coming-of-age drama Dawson's Creek.
When James Van Der Beek smiled on camera in December 2025, most viewers thought he looked fine. A little thinner maybe, but still the same guy who played Dawson Leery all those years ago. What they didn't know was that he'd been fighting stage 3 colorectal cancer for over 2 years. What they couldn't see was everything else he'd survived. 5 miscarriages of his wife, the loss of his mother, financial strain severe enough that he'd auction off memorabilia just to pay for treatment. And through it all, 6 kids counting on him. Less than 2 months after that interview, James Van Der Beek would be gone, dead at 48. The question isn't just what happened. It's how someone who seemed so fortunate ended up facing tragedy after tragedy. The diagnosis nobody saw coming. In August 2023, James Van Der Beek went in for a routine colonoscopy. He was 46 years old, still young by most standards, still physically active, still someone who associated cancer with old age and unhealthy lifestyles. But he'd been noticing things, subtle things, changes in his bowel movements that started in the summer. Nothing dramatic, nothing that screamed emergency, just irregularities that felt off. At first he blamed coffee. He cut it out. The problems persisted. That's when he knew he needed to get checked. The colonoscopy revealed stage 3 colorectal cancer. Stage 3 means the cancer had already spread to nearby lymph nodes. It wasn't early, it wasn't minor, it was serious, and it required aggressive treatment immediately. James later described the moment the gastroenterologist delivered the news in his most pleasant bedside manner. The words themselves were clinical, professional, but the impact was devastating. "I went into shock," James admitted. He'd always thought he was ahead of the game by getting screened at 46. He didn't realize the recommended age had dropped to 45. He thought he was being proactive. Turns out, he was already behind. Here's what made it worse. James had no family history of colorectal cancer, no genetic predisposition, no obvious risk factors. He was in amazing cardiovascular shape. He tried to eat healthy. He didn't fit the profile. And yet there it was, growing inside him without any dramatic warning signs. This is the reality of early-onset colorectal cancer. It's been rising steadily in people under 50 since the mid-1990s. Rates have increased 1 to 2% every year. For people under 55, death rates from colorectal cancer have been climbing about 1% annually since the mid-2000s. While older adults benefit from increased screening and improved treatments, younger people are dying more frequently from a cancer they never saw coming. James became part of that statistic. And for over a year, almost nobody knew. He kept the diagnosis private, completely private. Only his immediate family and closest friends knew what he was dealing with. While he underwent treatment, while he changed his entire lifestyle, while he grappled with the unknown, the rest of the world still saw him as Dawson Leery, the innocent kid from the creek, the heartthrob from Varsity Blues, someone whose biggest problem was being typecast. They had no idea he was fighting for his life. The secrecy wasn't about shame, it was about control. I've been dealing with this privately until now, getting treatment and dialing in my overall health with greater focus than ever before, he would later explain. He wanted to focus on his family. He wanted to process what was happening without the world watching. He wanted to figure out what this meant before having to explain it to millions of strangers. But in November 2024, that privacy was stolen from him. A tabloid threatened to run the story. They were going to reveal his diagnosis, whether he wanted it public or not. So James made the decision to announce it himself, on his own terms, in a cover story with People magazine. "I've been dealing with this privately until now," he posted on Instagram. "I'm in a good place and feeling strong." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Fans who grew up watching Dawson's Creek flooded his social media with support. Fellow actors reached out. Cancer organizations praised him for raising awareness, and suddenly his private battle became a public platform. But what most people didn't realize was how much he'd already been through before cancer ever entered the picture. Because the tragedy of James Van Der Beek didn't start with a diagnosis. It started years earlier, with losses that most people never talk about. The heartbreak before the headlines. If you followed James Van Der Beek on social media during the late 2010s, you might have noticed something. He posted about his kids constantly, 6 beautiful children, a wife who seemed like his perfect partner, a life that looked idyllic on the surface. But what you might not have known was the cost of building that family, the losses, the near-death experiences, the grief that haunted them between every pregnancy announcement. James married Kimberly Brooke on August 1, 2010, in a small ceremony at the Kabbalah Center in Tel Aviv, Israel. The wedding was intimate, meaningful, and perfectly timed. Kimberly was already 7 months pregnant with their first child, Olivia, who arrived less than 2 months later. Their romance had been fast. They met in Israel in 2009, when James was on an organized trip during a difficult transition in his life. He'd just finalized his divorce from actress Heather McComb. He was emotionally raw, but ready for something real. "I was done being single," he later wrote. "I wanted a real relationship, a soulmate, someone with whom I could build a family." He was mid-conversation with a friend, pouring out his heart about what he wanted, when a woman interrupted them to ask his friend a question. James was annoyed. Who interrupts someone's moment of revelation like that? He turned around. It was Kimberly. 3 days later, he asked her what she was looking for in a relationship. Her answer? "I'm not looking for a relationship." 6 months later, they were living together. 2 weeks after that, Kimberly was pregnant. It sounds like a fairy tale, and in some ways, it was. But fairy tales don't tell you about the parts that break you. After Olivia came Joshua, then a miscarriage, then Annabelle, another miscarriage, then Emilia, another miscarriage, then Gwendolyn, then 2 more miscarriages, back to back, both late term, both life-threatening. 5 miscarriages total over 9 years, not early losses, not quick, private heartbreaks, hospitalizations, near-death scares, a suspected tumor that thankfully turned out to be nothing but still terrified them for weeks. "I had Olivia and Joshua, then I had a miscarriage," Kimberly explained in a 2020 podcast appearance. "Then I had Annabelle, another miscarriage. Then I had Amelia, another miscarriage. Gwendolyn, 2 miscarriages. The last 2 were the worst. Both happened at 17 weeks. Both required hospitalization. Both almost killed her." The 4th miscarriage happened in November 2019, while James was competing on Dancing with the Stars. He was one of the strongest performers that season, consistently near the top of the leaderboard, widely considered a frontrunner for the finale. Then, 48 hours before the semifinals, Kimberly miscarried, again. James had a choice. He could withdraw from the competition, he could take time to grieve privately, or he could perform. Kimberly, from her hospital bed, told him, "I am not done watching you dance." So he danced. He performed a stunning foxtrot to "Take Me to Church" by Hozier. Before the performance, he revealed what had happened to a stunned audience. "My wife Kimberly and I went through every expecting parent's worst nightmare. We lost the baby," he said, his voice breaking. "The little soul that we had expected to welcome into our family took a shortcut to whatever lies beyond. You never know why these things happen. That's what I've been telling my kids. All you know is that it brings you closer together. It breaks you open. It opens up your heart, deepens your appreciation, makes you more human." He received a score of 27 out of 30. The judges praised him. The audience wept. His daughter cried in the stands. And then, at the end of the episode, he was eliminated anyway, sent home in 5th place. The same night, he'd bared his soul on national television. James collapsed on Instagram afterward. "Wrecked, devastated, in shock," he wrote. "We've been through this before, but never this late in the pregnancy, and never accompanied by such a scary, horrific threat to Kimberly and her well-being. The baby they lost was a boy. 10 months later, in June 2020, Kimberly miscarried again. Another boy, another 17-week loss, another hospitalization, another brush with death. By this point, James and Kimberly had 5 living children, but they'd also lost 5 pregnancies. The math was brutal. For every child that survived, they'd lost 1. The emotional toll was staggering, and it wasn't just the physical trauma. It was the repeated hope, the announcements, the planning, and then the sudden brutal end. They chose to talk about it publicly, not for sympathy, for solidarity. Miscarriage is something that people don't really talk about, and we wanted to recognize that it happens to people, James said. He even criticized the word itself. Miscarriage, a word that needs a replacement. Nobody failed to carry. These things sometimes just happen. He was right. About 1 in 5 pregnancies end in miscarriage. It's common, but it's rarely discussed. People suffer in silence, alone, thinking they're the only ones. James and Kimberly refused to let that stigma continue. They shared their grief openly, even recording the moment James told their 5 kids that Mom had lost another baby. Some cried, some asked questions, some ignored it entirely. All of them processed it differently, just like adults do. In November 2021, Kimberly gave birth to their 6th child, Jeremiah, a healthy baby boy, a miracle after so much loss. But even as their family finally felt complete, other tragedies were already piling up. When everything fell apart at once. There's a photo James posted on Instagram in August 2022 that tells a story most people missed at the time. The first picture shows him with his son in December 2019. The second shows him with 2 of his kids in August 2022. Between those 2 photos, everything changed. Pic number 1, we had just lost a baby 18 weeks into pregnancy and almost lost Kimberly in the process, he explained in the caption. That was the Dancing with the Stars miscarriage, the one that happened on national television. But that wasn't all. At the same time, one of his projects wasn't going well. He'd been eliminated from Dancing with the Stars in front of millions. His career felt stalled. And then, 8 months later, his mother died. Melinda Weber Van Der Beek passed away in August 2020. She'd been a dancer and gymnastics teacher. She'd raised James and his 2 siblings in Connecticut. She'd supported his acting dreams from the beginning, and now she was gone. James was heartbroken. The losses kept compounding, the miscarriage, the elimination, the career struggles, his mother's death, all of it piling up with no time to properly grieve any of it. All of that led to some drastic changes in our lives, and dreams and priorities, he wrote. That's when James made a decision that shocked Hollywood. In September 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, he announced he was leaving Los Angeles. The family was moving to Texas, not to a suburb, not to a smaller city, to a 36-acre ranch in the middle of nowhere. People thought it was a pandemic move, a temporary escape, but it wasn't. It was permanent. James was done with Hollywood, done with the grind, done with chasing roles that never quite measured up to Dawson Leery, done with the constant pressure to be someone he wasn't. The ranch in Texas became their sanctuary, a place where the kids could run free, where they could heal together, where James could be a dad first and an actor second. He partnered with Quaker Chewy in 2023 to promote an hour of uninterrupted play each day with his children. We're lucky enough to have the space to kick a ball around, he said. It looked like a fresh start, a new chapter, a chance to rebuild after so much loss. But less than 3 years later, in August 2023, James was diagnosed with cancer, and suddenly all those plans for a peaceful life on the ranch felt fragile, uncertain, threatened. The diagnosis turned his life into what he described as a full-time job. Treatment, lifestyle changes, constant monitoring. He tried everything: keto diet, yoga, stretching, rest. The beauty of just taking things a little bit more slowly and prioritizing rest, and really allowing that to be the job, he told Today in December 2024. He didn't specify which treatments he underwent, but colorectal cancer treatment typically involves surgery, chemotherapy, and sometimes radiation. The process is grueling, exhausting, and the uncertainty never goes away. The trickiest thing is there are so many unknowns with cancer, James said. You think, how do I fix this? Is this healing me? Is this hurting me? Is this working? Is it coming back? As someone who likes answers, not knowing is one of the hardest things. He tried to stay optimistic. I'm very cautiously optimistic, he said in his People interview. I'm in a place of healing. My energy levels are great. But beneath the optimism was fear. 10% of the time, he admitted, he was a sobbing, terrified mess. And there was another problem nobody talks about: money. The financial strain nobody expected. When people think of James Van Der Beek, they think of a successful actor, someone who starred on a hit television show for 6 seasons, someone who appeared in a box office success like Varsity Blues, someone who should be financially comfortable for life. The reality was very different. Dawson's Creek ended in 2003. That was over 20 years ago. And while the show made James famous, it didn't make him wealthy, not in the way people assume. Television actors in the late 90s, especially on smaller networks like the WB, didn't command the salaries that actors get today. And after Dawson's Creek, James struggled to find roles that matched that level of success. He appeared in smaller films, guest spots on shows like Criminal Minds, How I Met Your Mother, CSI Cyber, and Pose. He had a recurring role on Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23. He created and starred in What Would Diplo Do?, a Viceland parody series that earned critical praise but limited viewership. He worked constantly, but most of the work wasn't lucrative. Then came the move to Texas, the ranch, 6 kids, a wife, medical bills from Kimberly's hospitalizations during the miscarriages, the cost of raising a large family without the steady income of a network show, and then cancer. Cancer treatment in the United States is notoriously expensive. Even with insurance, the out-of-pocket costs can be devastating. Co-pays, deductibles, treatments not covered by insurance, travel to specialists, time away from work. The financial burden compounds quickly. In November 2025, James made a decision that revealed just how dire things had become. He announced he was auctioning off memorabilia from Dawson's Creek and Varsity Blues to help pay for his cancer treatment. The auction was handled by Prop Store, a reputable memorabilia company. The items included costumes, props, and personal items from the shows and films that made James famous. The top lot was a Season 3 necklace from Dawson's Creek, which sold for $26,628. Other items included his Varsity Blues Letterman jacket, scripts, and set pieces. The auction raised over $47,000. It sounds like a lot, but cancer treatment costs can easily exceed hundreds of thousands of dollars. That $47,000 was a drop in the bucket. And the fact that James had to auction off pieces of his own career just to afford treatment was heartbreaking. These weren't just props. They were memories, pieces of the work that defined him, and he was forced to sell them to survive. The costs of James's medical care and the extended fight against cancer have left the family out of funds, a GoFundMe campaign would later explain after his death. They are working hard to stay in their home and to ensure the children can continue their education and maintain some stability during this incredibly difficult time. The GoFundMe was created by friends of the family after James passed away. It raised over $2.6 million, a testament to how much people loved him. But it also revealed the truth. Despite decades in Hollywood, despite starring in iconic shows and films, James Van Der Beek died without enough money to cover his medical bills or secure his family's future. Financial toxicity is a term used to describe the crippling cost of cancer care. It's a burden that affects countless families, even those with insurance, even those who did everything right. James became a symbol of that struggle, a reminder that fame doesn't equal wealth and that the American health care system can bankrupt anyone. Through it all, James kept working because he had to, because his family needed the income, and because, as he said, the greatest thing about work is cancer doesn't exist between action and cut. The final year he never expected. In 2025, James Van Der Beek did something few people would have the courage to do. While fighting stage 3 cancer, while dealing with the financial strain, while raising 6 kids, he went back to work. Not because he wanted to, because he had to, and because in some strange way it helped him cope. In May 2025, he announced he'd been cast as a recurring guest star in Elle, the upcoming Legally Blonde prequel series. "I play somebody running for mayor," he said. "Going back to work next month, and so, yeah, things are good." Things weren't good, but work gave him something cancer couldn't touch. A sense of normalcy, a purpose beyond being a patient. He also competed on season 13 of The Masked Singer as Griffin, a costume with wings that opened during performances. The clues referenced his illness subtly, but most viewers didn't catch them. He performed. He sang. He connected with an audience that didn't see him as sick, just as James. When he was eliminated during Group B Finals Grand Ole Opry night, host Nick Cannon surprised him by bringing Kimberly and their children on stage. The moment was emotional, overwhelming. "It was everything, man," James said afterward. "They were what inspired me to do it." The anonymity of The Masked Singer had been healing. Put on a mask and connect with an audience and not have cancer be a part of the equation at all was awesome, he explained. For those few weeks, he wasn't James Van Der Beek, cancer patient. He was Griffin, a performer, an artist, someone whose identity wasn't defined by disease. But even as he tried to live normally, the cancer was progressing. The treatments were working, but not enough. The unknowns kept multiplying, and the toll on his body and his family was becoming impossible to ignore. In December 2024, he participated in The Real Full Monty, a Fox special where male celebrities stripped down to raise awareness for colorectal cancer. It was brave, vulnerable, a moment where he used his platform to educate others about the disease killing him. Don't think that not having symptoms means you don't have to get screened, especially for something that is this curable when caught early, he urged viewers. That's really what I want to get across. He spoke about how cancer had changed him spiritually. Before his diagnosis, God was something I tried to fit into my life as much as possible. After cancer, his connection to faith became the whole point of this exercise on this planet. He spent his final months focused on what mattered: his kids, his wife, his legacy. "Being a father has been the most treasured honor of my life," he wrote on Father's Day in June 2025. "Thank you to my kids for reteaching me how to live, laugh, love, and show up in my own life and in the world." He also praised Kimberly publicly and often. "One day, I'll tell the story of what you've endured these last 2 years and how you've shown up time and time and time again," he wrote in a post dedicated to her. "You have not only saved my life, you've shown me what it is to truly live in it." But behind the inspiring posts and the public optimism, James knew the reality. Cancer was winning, and time was running out. The end nobody wanted. On February 11, 2026, James David Van Der Beek passed away peacefully at his home in Texas. He was 48 years old. His wife, Kimberly, announced his death on Instagram with a statement that captured everything he'd fought for. "Our beloved James David Van Der Beek passed peacefully this morning. He met his final days with courage, faith, and grace." The news hit hard. Former co-stars from Dawson's Creek reached out publicly. Katie Holmes wrote on Instagram, "I mourn this loss with a heart holding the reality of his absence and deep gratitude for his imprint on it. Joshua Jackson, Michelle Williams, and Busy Phillips all shared tributes. Alfonso Ribeiro posted about a final visit with James and their close friendship. Stacy Keebler shared an emotional remembrance. Reese Witherspoon, who'd been executive producing Elle alongside James, posted a devastated tribute calling him an extraordinary, talented man who also showed great kindness and grace in every action. The outpouring was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of comments flooded social media. Fans shared their favorite Dawson's Creek moments. People posted about meeting him at conventions and being struck by his kindness. The entertainment industry mourned the loss of someone who'd been part of their lives for nearly 30 years. But the most devastating detail came in the days after his death. The GoFundMe campaign revealed just how much the cancer had cost. Throughout his illness, the family faced not only emotional challenges, but also significant financial strain as they did everything possible to support James and provide for his care, the campaign explained. The costs of James's medical care and the extended fight against cancer have left the family out of funds. Kimberly and their 6 children, Olivia, 14, Joshua, 13, Annabelle, 11, Emilia, 8, Gwendolyn, 6, and Jeremiah, just 2 years old, were left without their husband and father and without the financial resources to move forward comfortably. They are working hard to stay in their home and to ensure the children can continue their education and maintain some stability during this incredibly difficult time. The GoFundMe raised over $2.6 million within days. Strangers donated. Celebrities contributed. Fans who'd grown up with Dawson's Creek sent whatever they could. But it also sparked difficult conversations. How does a successful actor die broke? How does someone who starred in a hit show for 6 years end up auctioning memorabilia to pay for treatment? How does cancer destroy not just a life, but an entire family's financial security? The answer is complicated. Hollywood isn't as lucrative as people think, especially for actors who had one big role decades ago. Medical costs in America are astronomical, and cancer doesn't care how famous you are or how hard you work. The American healthcare system, even with insurance, can bankrupt families. James's story became a painful reminder of that reality. On February 13th, Fox announced it would re-air the Real Full Monty special in James's honor on February 18th, giving viewers another chance to see him advocate for colorectal cancer awareness. It was a fitting tribute to someone who'd used his final months trying to save others from the same fate. 2 projects James worked on before his death will be released posthumously. The Gates, a horror film directed by John Burr, will debut on March 13, 2026. In it, James plays a character named Jacob in a story about a death in a gated community. The film's director shared periodic texts they had exchanged in James's final months. His words were filled with energy and punctuated with exclamation points, even as his health must have been in decline. Then on July 1, 2026, Elle will premiere on Prime Video. James's recurring role as Dean Wilson will be his final on-screen performance. The show follows young Elle Woods through high school, years before the events of the first Legally Blonde movie. Viewers will see James one last time, playing a school superintendent running for mayor, delivering what producers described as memorable performances with perfect comedic timing. It's a bittersweet legacy. His final role in a show about a young woman finding her voice and fighting for what matters. James Van Der Beek fought with everything he had. He changed his diet. He tried every treatment. He stayed positive. He used his platform to raise awareness. He kept working to provide for his family. He loved his wife and kids with a fierce devotion that everyone who knew him recognized. And it still wasn't enough. Colorectal cancer is now the leading cause of cancer-related death among men and women under 50. Rates have been climbing for decades. Screening guidelines have dropped to age 45, but many people don't know that. And the symptoms, changes in bowel movements, abdominal pain, blood in stool, are easy to dismiss or attribute to something less serious. James dismissed his symptoms at first, too. He blamed coffee. He thought it would pass. By the time he got screened, the cancer was already at stage 3. If he'd gone a year earlier, at 45, would it have been caught sooner? Would the outcome have been different? Those are the questions that haunt everyone who loved him. In the end, the heartbreaking tragedy of James Van Der Beek wasn't one single event. It was a series of losses that compounded over time. 5 miscarriages that nearly killed his wife, the death of his mother, career struggles that never quite matched his early success, financial strain that made cancer treatment an existential threat, and finally, the disease itself, which took him from his family 2.5 years after diagnosis. He was 48 years old. His youngest child was 4. He had so much left to do, so many years he should have had, so many moments he'll never experience. Jeremiah's first day of school, Olivia's graduation, weddings, grandchildren, all of it stolen by a disease that kills too many people too young. What are your thoughts about James Van Der Beek? Share with us in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. For more interesting stories like this, be sure to click on the next video that pops up on your screen. You never know what you'll discover next.